Hey gang, welcome to episode, I forgot what episode number this is. Welcome to the latest episode, as of right now, of That Thing with James J. Asher II. I'm your host, James J. Asher II. Now, if you're a regular, but not viewer, if you're listening, you'd be a listener. If you're a regular to this show, then you know that I always play the theme song live to tape. Well, I'm going to forego that, and I'm probably going to keep this episode short because I feel kind of like crud right now. I got a tetanus vaccine shot less than 2 days ago, and it has wrecked me. I got it in my left deltoid. And man, it is so sore right now. And I have kind of almost flu-like symptoms. And just low energy, flu-like symptoms. So I'm not feeling too hot. But I still wanted to finish up this 3-part trilogy of The Outsider. So this will be the final episode of this trilogy. But don't worry. There'll be more episodes after this is done, but I just want to bring this thing to a conclusion. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be done. There you go. That's some project philosophy for you, if you're into creating or working on things. It doesn't have to be perfect, because perfect is impossible. There's this quote from Salvador Dali. It goes something like, have no fear of perfection. You'll never achieve it. There you go. So don't worry about being perfect. Worry about just getting it done and being good. Make it good enough. Make it as good as you can. But don't get caught in trying to chase perfection. And that's something I have to tell myself a lot with stuff that I work on, because I have perfectionist tendencies. And, if you look for something wrong, you will always find something wrong. At some point, you have to let something go. It's like giving birth. It's like having a child and rearing that child into a functioning young adult and letting them go, live their lives, and experience the world on their own. You have to do that with your own creative babies. Raise it as well as you can, but know when it's time to let it go and live its own life. Cool stuff, I think. All right, so before we get into it, as usual, let's take care of some quick business. First of all, I want to thank Josh and Wade. Thank you both so much. Those are my 2 patrons. They help support this show with their very, very generous donations on my Patreon account. If you would like to help support this show, you may do so also through my Patreon account, which you can find on the internet at patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. Patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. Wait, what was that? Patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. Correct. You can donate as little as $1 a month or as much as $15,000 per month. Or you don't have to do it every month. You can just donate for 1 month and then sign off. But it's a monthly donation setup. Yeah, and if you want to do $15,000, if you've got fuck you money, or if you're poor with money management, or if you just want to gamble on, become a burgeoning artist's patron, a struggling artist's patron, you can do that at patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. If you want to gamble on an artist coming up with some good work, gamble on me. I guarantee you'll get good results out of it. Let's see what else. I have a website, jamesjasher.com. There, you can find my blog on that website. If you go way, way back before I started this show, you can see some samples of my writing, some stuff. I've talked about it before on this show, and I haven't read it. I haven't read it in like a year, but I just love the idea of this one I guess I'd call it an essay that I wrote about the nature of nature. I'm not saying what the nature of nature is. I was just exploring, because that's what essay means. Essays, I believe it's French for to try. And I was trying to explore the idea of the nature of nature, and I wrote it while I was drunk on absinthe and watching this sci-fi show called Altered Carbon. So yeah. And also, if you want to check out like my agent's contact information, if you've got like you want to like maybe talk about hiring me for a project or something, huh? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Actually, do say more. Talk to my agent. His contact information is on the contact page of my website, which is jamesjasher.com. Or if you want to contact me directly, you can do that too at ThatThingWithJames@gmail.com. I encourage anybody to send me an email. If you just want to reach out and say hi, if you have a suggestion or an idea for a subject to cover on the show, like make a whole episode about it. If you have questions that you would like me to answer on the show, like if you are in need of advice, I am more than happy to answer those questions to the best of my ability on this show. So don't hesitate to reach out. ThatThingWithJames@gmail.com. Or you could also probably hit me up if you slide into my DMs, because I'm on Instagram and Twitter. My handle is @JamesJAsher. Yeah. I make, I'm going to say this in a humble manner. I make the best Insta stories, the 24-hour things. I mean, I'm not trying to boast. They're just objectively better than everyone else's. And, you can find those if you search my handle @JamesJAsher. And if you're listening to this, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this show, rate and review. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Select the little bell button next to where it says subscribe. Then you can get notifications for when I upload, dink, new videos. Also, like the videos you like, and that meaning like hit the like button and write a comment. And for all of you, share the show with your friends. Spread the love like butter on a croissant. Well, I think that's everything. Let's get on with the show. All right, part 3 of The Outsider. When we left off, I got an apartment and I signed on with my first talent agent, who I left off saying wasn't that great. Let me unpack that. That's a phrase I learned in grad school. Could you unpack that for us? Let me unpack that for you. At first, things were okay. I was, getting I auditions, maybe once a week or every couple of weeks. Sometimes I'd get multiple auditions in a week. I might get jobs. If I got a job, like hired for a gig, the payment would come in within like 2 weeks of completing the gig. And everything seemed hunky-dory. But over time, I started getting fewer and fewer auditions. And the agent started becoming more and more difficult to get in contact with. One of the most difficult ways to get in contact with him was physically. You could no longer, I don't know when it happened, but it wasn't long after I signed on. The office that I visited him in, the office in which I betrayed my better judgment and the lesson that I got from my old teacher, Lloyd, when I cut a check of my own money for an agent, the office that I did that in, well, the office space existed, but my agent and his assistant no longer existed within that office. As a matter of fact, my agent was no longer in Austin nor in Texas at all. He was in Los Angeles, California. And there were a lot of rumors going around about the guy. One of the most prevalent rumors I heard was that he moved to Beverly Hills and tried to buy a very expensive house, but ran out of money, went bankrupt, and started couch surfing, and was doing his agent job, well, or I should say maybe not doing his agent job, from people's couches, crashing around LA. Now, I don't know about you, but I would expect an agent who first signed me on in Austin, who represents people solely in Austin, to live in Austin. Well, that guy didn't. And apparently, I don't know if this is true. It was more rumor stuff that I heard, but supposedly an agent legally only had to reside in the city in which they are representing talent. That talent is what they call actors and models and dancers and singers and such, the talent. An agent only has to reside in the city in which he is representing talent for 2 weeks out of a year. Out of every year, only 2 weeks. So apparently that's what my agent was doing. He was only living in Austin for 2 weeks out of the year, and then going back to Los Angeles and I guess crashing on couches, and I suspect spending other people's money. See, over time, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, at first my checks were coming in, pretty quickly. But then they started coming in, within 2 weeks. And then they started coming in 30 days after the gig. And then they started coming in a month and a half. And then they started not coming in at all. The checks for the work that I did. And that was very difficult for me, because at the time that the money stopped coming in, money that I had worked for, money that I was owed, I was flat broke. So let's back up. I moved into the apartment at the Edge, and I needed to get a job, and I had searched around for jobs before and not had any luck. But after I moved in, I went into the front office, and I guess one of the leasing agents overheard that I was looking for a job, and she said, "Do you want my job? I actually just put in my 2 weeks notice yesterday, and I can talk to the managers, to the GM, and see if she wants to hire you to replace me." And I said, "Yes, please, thank you." And I thought, that's fucking fate right there. That's kismet. That's perfect. I needed a job, and there it was. So I started like maybe a week later, and I got some meager training, but things at the front office of the Edge were a bit of a mess. I learned, after having signed like W4s, W2s, whatever the fuck they're called, I learned that the Edge was going, they were in a state of transition between management companies, and things were a bit chaotic. And chaotic is an absolute understatement for the way things were. There were just papers everywhere. The only manager, there was no general manager. There wasn't even a regional manager. The highest manager was one shift manager, and she worked every fucking shift because she was the only one. And she was such a bitch. I mean, a raging bitch. And I don't say that lightly. I extended olive branches. I fucking went to Greece. I went to the Middle East. I went to the olive orchard. I gathered a bunch of branches and I came back to the front office of the Edge, and I extended those so hard. And she just slapped them away. Why? Because she was a bitch. And she was so much better than the job she had. It's not worth like belaboring just how she was a bitch, but just take my word for it. The lady was a bitch. If you couldn't tell, I've called her a bitch like half a dozen times now. So things were chaotic. I didn't even get trained, and then I got abandoned and would get screamed at by the shift manager because I didn't know what I was doing. And when I tried to explain, hey, I didn't even get fucking training, she just stormed off. Didn't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. And it was like that for a couple weeks. And then finally this dude came in. I don't remember his name. But he was a little bit older than me. I think he was like 30. He had just gotten out of the military and he was in college studying computer science. And he was a fucking saint. He was nice to me. He listened to what I was going through and what the situation was like. And he's like, dude, this is unacceptable. And that woman, yeah, she is a bitch. So don't worry about her. Just let me train you and we can get this place ship shape. So me and that guy got that front office whipped up and ship shape, started hiring more people, started leasing apartments out to people. And one of the things that really did not sit well with me was the fact that there was, in small print, snuck right into the middle of a pretty thick leasing contract, there was an agreement saying that any presence of cockroaches or bed bugs, the responsibility of an infestation of those two bugs, the responsibility did not fall upon the shoulders of the Edge or any of its subsidiaries or its owners or its parents. So basically it's saying by signing this contract, you're signing away your right to get the apartment management to fucking take care of the bug infestation that they fucking knew every apartment in the whole complex had. The whole complex of like 20 buildings. Every single one of them had bed bugs and cockroaches. And management never talked about it. And I brought it up because I'm a rebel and I'm honest. And if I see an injustice, I will fucking shout it from the hilltop. And so I brought it up to the management, and another like shift manager came in. So there was like two shift managers, the bitch, and then a guy who was just like totally checked out. They just plugged their ears whenever I brought it up. And I talked to the military guy who was helping me actually. And he was like, yeah, I know about it. And I don't like it either. It's fucked up. They won't do anything about it. They won't listen. I've tried talking about it too. Yada, yada, yada. So that was a thing. And we couldn't even mention this or even point it out when people were, coming to the office to sign up for a lease. And that was just really tough to fucking know that there was some shisty business going on, and knowing that there was nothing I could do about it. And so I kept working. I would have quit, but, I was just still getting set up, and I was thinking, maybe in no time I'll start getting enough acting work, then I can just quit this, because there seems to be enough commercials in town, and also there's like a couple TV shows that we're filming here at the time. And I was just like, all right, yeah, I'm going to start getting gigs in no time. I'm going to do a little bit of open mic, stand-up comedy. I'll do some open mic guitar stuff too, and just, get out and meet people. And, I won't need a day job in no time. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I ended up having to get a second job, which I'll get into after this quick break. I'm back. That break took way longer than I expected it to. Now, outside, the reason it took longer than I expected is because outside, some asshole decided to wait until 7 p.m. to start power washing. I don't know what, but they're out there fucking power washing. They started just as I started, it was like sat down to record this bit. And then I was like, okay, I'll just wait a little bit. Waited 15 minutes. No, the power washing didn't stop. So then I played guitar for 30 minutes. Came back. No, power washing is still going on. So I was like, all right, I will make and eat dinner. So I made and ate dinner and cleaned the dishes and put them up. And you know what? It's been an hour now. It's 8 p.m. and that fucking power washer is still going. What asshole waits until this fucking late? Like, were they waiting until it cooled off a bit? Motherfucker, do you not realize that you have to function on my time? I'm trying to record a fucking award-winning podcast here, okay? And you were fucking spraying for an hour on a Friday, starting at 7 p.m., going on longer than an hour now? The fuck is your problem? Who do you think you are? So, if you can hear it in the background, which I hope you can't, I apologize. I'm going to try to edit it out if you can hear it, but if you can still hear the in the background, I'm sorry. All right. So where were we? I got a job at the Edge, and I got a second job. So after, I don't know, a couple of weeks, I figured out, or maybe a month or so, I figured out like $30 every 2 weeks is not enough to live on. That's not enough money to pay my student loan bills, put gas in my car, and feed myself, and print headshots for auditions. I was fucking paying, I was losing money out of what I had left from my student loans. So I needed a second job, and one came my way in my time of need. It was a job that I applied for earlier when I was getting turned down by everybody. It was Starbucks, and they needed someone to come in because the holiday season was starting soon. It was going to be Thanksgiving pretty soon, in like a week. And so they hired me, and I worked Thanksgiving, and I was also working at the front office. So I was doing those two jobs. I worked Thanksgiving. I worked what else? I worked on blah blah. This fucking power washer is distracting me, and I'm already feeling under the weather. All right, come on, man, get your shit together. I worked on Christmas and Christmas Eve, and I got sick. I got real fucking sick because I was fatigued. I was working like more than 40 hours a week, 2 jobs. One was like an intense manual labor, Starbucks. I mean, it's not fucking construction, but you got to stand and move around. You got to get there at weird fucking hours. You have to I would clopen all the fucking time. I would close the store down at midnight, get home, break everything down, clean, and then get home by around 1 a.m. and then have to be back at 5 a.m. the next morning. And then, as soon as I got done there, go back to the Edge and clock in at the front office and work till they closed at I think 7. And then I just did that over and over, and I got really ill. And the general manager at my Starbucks, which, by the way, I was always on, I didn't get any training there either. Starbucks, you're supposed to get 2 weeks of training. I got like 3 days. And then they said, nope, it's holiday season. Good luck. Go get them, Tiger. And they put me on the drive-through. So I had to drive through Starbucks on the side of a fucking highway, just before like a little shopping area, strip mall kind of area. So there were people all the time. There was never a break. And I already have a hard time hearing. And I definitely could not hear people over that the one headphone on a crackly speaker and, all this noise in the background, the in-store noise. I couldn't hear anything. I always had to look at the other workers because everyone has to wear a headphone to, cover, because everyone does multiple jobs. And then when things slowed down, they tried to get me to like make drinks, but I didn't know how to make any of the fucking drinks. And they would just like roll their eyes at me and say, all right, fine, go back to the drive-through. And then just kind of like silently, passively judge me for not knowing how to make all the fucking 101 sugary bullshit, McDonald's excuse for coffee beverages. They're not even fucking coffee. It's just candy drinks at fucking Starbucks. I have not even been back to a Starbucks since I quit. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I got ill, and the GM at the Starbucks was like, yo, I used to do 2 jobs too, and it's tough. You might think about giving one up. I can give you some more hours here to help you cover your bills and stuff. And I was like, all right, I think I need to do that. And so I quit the front office. Thank God, that place was hell. But just like a week or 2 before I quit, they got a new general manager, this middle-aged woman who used to be a trucker. And she was fucking awesome. I told her all the fucking drama that I went through with that place, and she was very understanding, and she genuinely wanted to look out for her employees and her colleagues and everything. And she was just a good lady. I liked her, and she sympathized with me. So respect. I respect her because she respected others. Respect is a really big thing for me. Respect. Well, so I was just working all the holidays. I worked my birthday. I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And I had to like miss out on auditions because of working at Starbucks, because I couldn't get people to cover my shift, or because I just had to work because I needed the money. And I don't know if I was going to get hired for an acting job. And this got me really depressed. I got really depressed and really lonely. So I did something that I told myself years earlier I would never do. And that is online dating. I got onto OkCupid. I was so desperate and lonely for a personal and romantic life that I got on there. I needed something. I needed some kind of intimate life, close life outside of my apartment, because the Dallas kids, like their pregnant friend who was like 17 came down from Dallas, and then the kids also bought 2 teacup Chihuahua Aussies, teacup size, and they were cute. They were so cute, but they shit everywhere. The Dallas kids didn't train those dogs at all. So they were constantly shitting all over the floor in the living room area. And the Dallas kids, of course, didn't fucking clean it up, because they didn't clean up anything ever. And I was still getting bit, even though I was sleeping on a queen size double tall air mattress, which was frankly really fucking comfortable. Everything else had bed bugs, like the couch and the carpet, everything. So I'd always get bed bug bites and have to like get cockroaches away and get grossed out by them. But something I learned interesting is that cockroaches and bed bugs don't get along. They fight each other. They try to avoid each other, but when they cross paths, they fight. and the cockroaches win. So there's some bug science for you. So yeah, I got on OkCupid, and I got into a relationship. I mean, I got turned down a lot at first, and eventually I found someone that I felt like I really vibed with, and we started hanging out, and like it got pretty hot and heavy pretty quick. She was like living out of her van and living on her friend's couch also after her van got towed from her friend's apartment's parking lot. And so the girl, like, we just like basically started dating automatically, and then she moved in with me 2 weeks after we met. Yeah, 2 weeks. And she didn't have a job, but she was cool, and we had like a very passionate romance that at first I thought was very passionate and romantic. But as the relationship went on, it kind of clicked for me that, oh, this is not passion and romance. This is mental illness. I was dealing with mental illness and supporting her because she had needs, and one of those was marijuana, and she didn't have money to buy it, but she fucking loved to smoke it. And if she didn't, she was a bigger bitch than the shift manager at the front office. And at the time, I'm not saying that she is a bitch. She's not. But the way she was behaving was, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I was working all the time and then paying for 2 people, even though the money I was getting from Starbucks, the number of hours I was working constantly, I still did not have enough to live on. Fortunately, there was some kind of glitch in the system at the front office. I don't know. Now, I make up some stories. I tell the truth on some stories. So I want to leave this open for poetic interpretation. But just imagine, let's say I had a fantasy. Yes. So I had this fantasy that while all this upheaval was going on in the front office with like the apartment shifting like owners, like different corporations, there was all sorts of stuff going down, all sorts of drama that I wasn't even privy to. I only saw the surface of what was going on, and there was a lot. Well, I went in like the month after I quit there, and I had a check cut to pay for my rent. And, well, according to the computer, I had already paid rent. My rent was already, I was at a zero balance. And I said, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Yeah." And so I said, "I'm not so sure about that. Let me talk to the general manager." And she came out and she looked at the computer system and she's like, "No, you're at a zero balance. You've paid your rent." And I was like, perhaps in this flight of fancy, I was like, "Are you sure I paid my rent?" And perhaps in this flight of fancy, she winked at me and she said, "System says you've paid. You have a zero balance. You're good to go." So let's say, perhaps if that would have happened, I might have gone back every month to see if I didn't have a zero balance. But every time I went back, I did have a zero balance. More kismet, more luck, perhaps, which was really lucky because I just was not making enough money at Starbucks. Even if I weren't having to pay rent, even that amount, I still wasn't making like enough to live on. It was barely enough to live on, but I was racking it up. And at a certain point, I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm never going to get acting work because I keep missing opportunities because I'm working or I can't get someone to cover my shift. So I got to find a way out of this. Come Easter of 2013, I have to work that day. I've worked every fucking holiday. I've worked like 6 or 7 days. I've worked no less than 6 days a week for a few months at this point. And I was having full-blown panic attacks before and after work. I'd get severe heart palpitations. I would cry. I'd feel trapped. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. And I knew that it wasn't healthy. And my girlfriend, well, she was encouraging me to just quit and try to make the art work. She was like, give yourself up to destiny. And so I did. That morning, I was scheduled to go in at like 7 a.m. At 6, I had already been up for 2 hours having a full-blown panic attack the whole time. And finally, I was like, I'm going to do this. I texted my general manager at my news store, different guy than the lady that hired me. I texted him and said, I'm sorry, but I can't come in. I can't do it. Please take my name off the schedule. And he texted me back and said, are you serious? And I said, yes, I'm sorry. I'm 100% sure I know this is an inconvenience for you, but I can't do it. I'm very sorry. And he texted back and he said, okay. And I quit. And so much pressure came off. I felt so much better. And my girlfriend suggested we do something fun that she had been asking us to do for quite some time, but I frankly wasn't able to because of the work. And that was drive to this place called Port Aransas and just like spend the night. Just like go sleep on the beach or in the car or something. Just go spend the night there. And I said, you know what? Let's do that. So like we walked a couple blocks over to the grocery store to get some provisions for the trip. And on the walk, on the ground, I found $6 in quarters, $6 and change, all in quarters on the ground, $6 exactly. And I was like, that's a fucking sign. That has got to be a sign. And also, as soon as I found them, I saw fucking parrots on the power line above us. Like 6 parrots hanging out, bright green with like orange beaks, parrots, like smaller parrots. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? This truly is destiny. I should have quit. I was supposed to quit. So we got provisions and we got in my car and we got like a little nugget of weed, like a less than a gram. And we get in the car and we start driving to Port Aransas. We go south on I-35, go straight down to San Antonio and just keep going straight on I-35, straight through. I looked up the map before we left. And I was like, yeah, this is a fucking easy drive. Just go straight. We drove through San Antonio, kept driving. And after some time, the ground got sort of flat and dirt. It was just like dirt and sand, and it was all like just bright red orange, burnt orange dirt and tall cacti. And I was like, this doesn't look like the beach or anywhere near the coast at all. And my girlfriend was like, yeah, I think maybe we missed an exit or something. And I said, maybe. And just then we saw a sign that said, welcome to Laredo. In case you don't know, Laredo is a Texas town right on the border of Mexico. And we drove through a unoccupied checkpoint got into Laredo and stopped at a McDonald's to get some food and look at my map app on my phone and see where we went wrong. Indeed, I did miss a single exit in San Antonio. I was supposed to exit east instead of keep going south. I thought maybe the road I was on was eventually gonna, start going east to the Gulf, but no. It went south to the border, and it was either from where we were, from Laredo, it was either going to be a 4-hour drive back to Austin or a 4-hour drive to Port Aransas. And we looked up at the sky, trying to figure out which way to go. And off in the distance, in the north, heading south pretty quickly, we saw nothing but thunderheads. And we decided maybe we should go to Port Aransas another time. I think we should just go home right now. And so we did. We got back in the car and we drove north we got past Laredo, past the welcome sign. And then another mile up, there was another checkpoint structure. And I was like, I wonder if this one's unoccupied too. And I squinted my eyes and I saw little ant-like people milling about. Oh shit. No, there's people working. Do you still have that cannabis? And she was like, yeah. And I said, we need to do something with it. And she was like, well, do what? I was like, you could throw it out the window, but do it on the sly. So like they don't see it off in the distance. And she was like, I'm not gonna throw the weed out the window. I want to keep it. I was like, well, they might want to keep it too and keep us in jail. So maybe eat the weed? And she said, I'm not going to eat the weed. And I said, okay, then. And I looked at her crotch and she said, I'm not putting the weed in my pussy. And I said, all right, well, we better do something. Do we have a Ziploc bag? Indeed, we did. We had a Ziploc bag. So we with a bunch of like other stuff in it. So we stuffed the little bud wrapped in cellophane, stuffed it with a bunch of other stuff in a Ziploc bag, squeezed all the air out of it, wrapped it up tight, and then wrapped it up in like 3 different towels really tight and stuffed it down into her bag and put a bunch of other stuff on top of it. And we get up to the checkpoint, hearts pounding, and we stop, and there's a fucking drug dog right there. And I roll my window down, and there's one border patrol guy. He looks like not happy to be working on Easter, but he's like, license please. So I show him my license. Meanwhile, another border officer is walking the canine around the right side of the car, and my asshole is clenched so tight I could turn jelly into diamonds. And, the dog sniffs around, sniff, 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 and then keeps walking. They walk to the car right behind us and keep sniffing. We got through. And the guy who took my card hands it back and says, Happy Easter. I hope you have a good day. And I said, you too. And we rolled the windows up. We drove in complete silence until the checkpoint was out of sight. And then we just started screaming and laughing our heads off. So that was a very close call. And I had no job. Let me see what time I'm at now. Hold on. I need to take another quick break. I'll be right back, okay? This motherfucker is still power washing outside. Excuse me. Goodness. Like, dude, it is fucking dark out there. Like, there's no sun anymore. The fuck are you doing, man? Whatever you're doing, you should be fucking done by now. I know what it's like to power wash shit. It doesn't take that long. and you're in the fucking dark. How do you see what you're doing? You know, like, it's gonna be dirty still. What the fuck are you doing, man? Anyway, yeah. So I didn't have a job, and it was kind of nerve-wracking, but also kind of great. My girlfriend and I just started like writing down ideas for a show. And she also got me in contact with a friend of hers, an old coworker of hers from her last job. And he was looking for someone with theater experience to be in and help like add theatrics to his band. The group was called the Blue Dogs, and they were basically like a Tom Waits tribute band. And that was a fucking trip. That guy, I met with him he was living on the couch in his ex-wife's apartment with their kid, but they were split. They were like divorced, but he was living on their couch, I guess, in between jobs. But he was the leader of this group. It was like a 7-piece, not including me, 7-piece group. They had like trombone, guitar, bass, female lead singer, and then me. I met with the guy first. I met with him on a Saturday, and he just asked me about my theater experience. So I told him, like, dude, I've done it all, because that's what you learn in a theater program, is everything. And he said, that's great. You have any ideas off the top of your head? Here's what I'm thinking, yada, yada, yada. Can you help me with this? And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, great. I want you to come to, we've got a show this coming Friday. I want you to come to our practice on Wednesday. So he gave me an address. Wednesday comes, it's nighttime. I go to the address. It's some person's house. I walk in, the band is playing, and everyone looks at me like, who the fuck is this? And the guy, the band leader, introduces me. He hadn't told anyone else in the band that he was adding me, nor that he wanted to add some type of theatrics to the show. So I just showed up. They don't fucking know me from Adam. And, the guy's like, hey, we're going to keep practicing for another 30 minutes. Just hang out on the couch. And so I sat on the couch and listened to them practice. And once that was done, no one wanted to fucking talk to me because I was an outsider. Wink. Get it? An outsider. There's the theme again. But the band leader talks to me and he's like telling me his ideas and yada, yada. And he's like, no, it's going to be great. And I was like, he said, I've got this handheld spotlight I want you to use to like spotlight us. And I've also got a cowbell, and I've also have a section of chain link fence that I'm going to use like a urban washboard. So instead of the like a washboard kind of a thing, I was going to play with some, hard wooden mallets on a section, on like a 4x4 section of chain link fence. And it was going to be great. And I was like, how do I know when to do anything? And he's like, I will signal you during the show. So just, look alive. And I said, all right, cool, man, let's do it. Friday comes. We're at the Spider House. If you live in Austin, then you know about the Spider House probably. We were at the Spider House. It was my first time, not at the cafe, but at the stage there. Pretty cool looking venue. They've got like a, velvet drape, curtain or whatever. And I'm stoked for the show and a little nervous, and the band is like just getting ripped before the show. We're doing shots, passing joints around, and just ripped. And I was trying to talk to the leader, and I was like, hey, you sure I've got this? And he said, yeah, you're going to do fine, man. You're going to be great. And his eyes were as red as the devil. And the show started. And, well, it didn't go well. I was there. I was at the side of the stage. Pretty fucking drunk. And I was watching. I was aware, and I took the direction. I mean, I fucking was in it. I played that chain link fence. I played the cowbell along with the music and everything. And then for the finale, for like the last song, which was about like 10 minutes, their only original song, he wanted me to spotlight the group. And so I grabbed the handheld spotlight out of the bag, and I start shining I'm on stage shining the band, and he's like trying to yell at me, but I can't hear anything because the crowd's yelling and everything, and like having fun yelling, and the band is playing loud, and he's like, go into the crowd and spotlight us, into the crowd and spotlight us. So I go into the crowd and try to spotlight them. But as I'm walking down the stairs on the side of the stage, which leads right onto the floor, I like trip over someone's foot. I land on the fucking rum splattered floor, and so does the handheld spotlight. The back of it pops open, and the like 4 D batteries spring load jump out of the back of that fucking thing and scatter across the floor. And I'm like, the song is still going on, and I'm just like scrambling around trying to get these fucking batteries off the ground and gather them. But then the show ends, and I haven't found any of the batteries. And the crowd quickly clears out. The only one left is the band, who's packing their stuff up on stage, and me gathering the batteries, and the band leader's ex-wife helping me because she was in the audience. Meanwhile, the band members are breaking their stuff down. They're yelling at me, I'm fucking blind. What the fuck is wrong with you? I couldn't see shit. You fucking blinded me, man. And I was like, I'm following direction. And the band leader was just totally fucking oblivious. He was like going to get another fucking drink already. And I just, I hung out for a minute and sat by myself, just totally buzzed out, basically. Just like, you know, if you ever have performed, especially music, then you know what I mean, where it's just like you've got the performance high, and just afterwards you're just kind of your brain's very quiet, and your body is just like buzzing. So I had that going on, and I looked down at my shirt, and it's got blood splatters down the front, and then I look at my hands. I busted my knuckles on the chain link fence. So I was like, you know what, even though I got yelled at and fucking tripped and fucked up the spotlight thing, I think I had fun. This was a highlight of my life, and it was. I had fun. I always wanted to be in a band. Way before I even thought about acting, I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to do music, man. I still do. I ought to do it, but I just need to get around to going out by myself. Because I don't want to have to fuck around with getting a group together, because that clearly is not my forte. I'm always the outsider somehow, except, you know, with some people. But when it comes to like getting groups together or anything, I'm always a fucking outsider. And that's not to say I don't have friends and people I get along with. Great, I do. But generally, if there's a group, I'm hardly ever part of it. I think that's just my destiny, is to be kind of on the fringe. And I'm still learning how to own that and how to make it work for me. Anyway, I go to a CVS after the show, get myself some candy to take home. I see myself in the mirror. I just look, I've got fucking shadows under my eyes. My eyes are shot red. I've got blood on my shirt, sweat. And I was wearing we all have to dress Tom Waits style. So I was wearing my black suede jacket with a white button up and a black tie, black pants and black leather boots and a hat, kind of like the one I'm wearing. If you're watching, you can see it. If you're listening, you can't. Duh. And I was like, I look so fucking cool right now, and I feel so fucking cool. This is definitely a highlight. So that was a good time. Yeah, and then I started getting some gigs. I started getting acting gigs. I started going to auditions. And then in between those, because I needed money, I started doing background work as an extra on other gigs. And I got the money in from the background work because that didn't go through my agent. I just did that on my own and had them send me the check. But the gigs I was getting through my agency, through the auditions, through my agent who didn't even live in Austin anymore, I wasn't getting paid for them. And if I did, I had to wait a while. Oh, by the way, I totally forgot, but my roommates were all gone by this point. By Easter, all their leases had ended. The Kiwi, the Dallas Kids, the Teenage Pregnancy, the Teacup Chihuahua, Shit Machines, they'd all moved out by Easter. So it was just me and my girlfriend, which was such a relief. We fucking steamed the apartment as much as we could. And I think we did a pretty good job of getting rid of the bed bugs because we didn't get bites from them anymore. So yeah, they were gone. And, I was getting some work, but I wasn't, I was having to wait longer and longer and longer to get paid. And then finally, by one point, my girlfriend and I, we didn't have enough money to even buy cheap pasta for 2 weeks. We didn't have money. I had to, eat humble pie and ask my sister to bail me out. And thank God she did bail me out. She gave me money and said, no strings attached. Don't even think about trying to pay me back. This is me. This is my love for you. I don't want you going hungry. And, I talked to my brother on the phone about it. I talked to my parents and they're like, it does not sound like the best relationship. You might think about dumping her. And I was like, I have been thinking about that a lot lately because things had not been going well between us, but that's a whole other long, long story. But I talked to my brother and I told him everything that had been going on. And he's like, dude, that sucks. And the chick I just got out of a relationship, it sounds very similar to what I was in. And I encourage you to get out. And also, you shouldn't be sleeping on a fucking air mattress, man. Let me buy you a memory foam mattress. My brother said that. And I said, I am so grateful and so thankful for that. And I appreciate it. And I do want that. But I prefer to wait until I move into another place because this place has bed bugs. And he said, good point. Let me know when you're moving to a new place. Because, by well into the summer, I'd already been sort of like going behind my girlfriend's back and coordinating with a friend of mine from Oklahoma, Bennett, who's been on this show. I was coordinating with Bennett because he was going to be moving to town and we're good buddies. And we're like, let's live together. Because I'm like, I gotta get away from this situation, Bennett, and you need a roommate and I'm going to need a roommate and I love you. I think we'll get along great. And so he was like, yeah, let's do that. So we were working around behind my girlfriend's back. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out how to fucking get out of the situation. I'm trying to get her to get a job and everything. She gets a job and man, it didn't keep it for very long. And if she's watching or listening to this, please know that I'm not trying to slight you in any way whatsoever. We did have good times. I just, I'm trying to share this story and, tell my side of the story. And yeah, I'm not trying to hurt any feelings. And like I said before, she's not a bad person at all. She's not a bad person at all. We were both just at very tumultuous times in our lives, and we both had a lot going on, and those issues didn't really mix well together. So if you're listening or watching, please don't hate me for telling this story. And maybe I'm off, but I'm just trying to tell from my end of the story. I'm sure I know for a fact that I've got my faults too. I know. You know, I was impatient, unavailable to a certain extent. But I also had my reasons for being that way as well. So anyway, yeah, that stuff all happened. And eventually it got to the point where I had no money. I moved out. I moved in with Bennett. By this point, I was out of money again and went hungry for like another week and a half. But I couldn't bring myself to ask anyone for help. So I just kind of hoarded snacks and like went around to parking lots and picked up change and bought snacks and tried to live off that. And try to not be a burden on anybody. And through all this time, I would not have gone hungry if I had been paid on time, because I had a fat check. I had a $3,500 check waiting for me from a monk fruit commercial that I had not received. So like I mentioned in the last episode, it's like 90 days is the latest you're supposed to get paid. It was right at 90 days that I got paid. And also there was a stipulation in my agent contract saying that if you are not allowed to ask where your money is during the first 60 days, which is fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. My current contract doesn't say anything of the sort. No way. So I suspected the whole time that my agent was keeping other people's money, because I was asking around to my friends in my agency and outside my agency. The people outside my agency that were in the jobs that I was in, they got paid like 2 weeks after the gig. The people in my agency, everyone was looking for their money. The fucking agent was spending all of our fucking money and then trying to make it back and then pay what we were owed on like within 90 days. So he was just off spending our fucking money with barely the intention to pay us for the work that we did. I eventually dropped him years after. And, you know, I went a year without any coverage. And, man, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not feeling too great. This fucking tetanus shot's got me feeling loopy. And it's almost an hour. I got to wrap this show up. So I set out, perfection. At the beginning of this episode, I talked about perfection and how you shouldn't worry about it because you're never going to get it. And what you should be concerned about is finishing. And so I think I've pretty well finished what I was trying to say. I set out to talk about my start here in Austin and somehow link it together with this concept, this feeling I have of being sort of alien, being an outsider, being kind of on the fringe. I feel like that my whole life, and there are definitely many outstanding moments in my life that kind of confirm that feeling. It's not just I'm being overly sensitive and making things up. It's like, no, shit happens that pretty well confirms, like, you don't know me, and you don't like me, and you don't want me around, but I don't fucking care, because I'm not here for you. This is me talking to the people, people in cliques, because I've tried to get in to different, groups here, and maybe it's just Austin, Maybe it's just a South thing because it was pretty prevalent in Oklahoma. But whenever I go to like an actual city, Chicago, New York, an actual city, or even just talk to people from more metropolitan, more cosmopolitan type areas, type cultures, I often find we click a lot quicker than I do with people who are like from Texas or Oklahoma. Now, I do click with people from Texas and Oklahoma, but not quite as many. It's not as often, and it's not as quick, and it doesn't run as long and as deep as it does with like North and East Coast people. I guess I get along with those people from those areas a lot more naturally. I guess I don't seem like a kind of anomaly to them. I don't know. I think maybe it's a Texas thing. Maybe if I moved to an actual city, I wouldn't have this feeling of like always being an outsider. Or maybe I would. Maybe I'd find another group of outsiders, or a group of people who cherish and want outsiders, people who want fringe in their lives, who see the value in it. So yeah, I've been thinking about leaving this city, man, for quite a while. I just want to know how to do it without falling on my face and having to start from scratch all over again and starve again and get bit by bed bugs again. Anyway, if you feel like an outsider, if you feel fringe, if you feel strange, if you feel alien, you're not alone. Cherish that. That's the thing that makes you unique. It's the thing that makes you special. Never get rid of it. Cherish it. Make it your friend. Peace.